Whoops, misclicked there. What's up, everybody? It is Saturday, March 13th, 2021. This is a special edition of Brandon's show. I am Brandon. Today, we're going to be talking with Fight the Flat Earth. He wants to see what I know about NASA space fakery, and hopefully we'll be discussing other topics as well. So that should be interesting. Just spoke to him a few minutes ago and he's standing by. You see him below. Once he's ready, I'll unmute him and then we'll get the conversation started. Good to see everybody on this Saturday morning or Sunday if you're on the other side of the world. Let's see who we got in the chat. Give me a thumbs up if you got my audio too. It looks like I'm coming through, but you never know. We've got The Plain Truth. Is this a dating stream? Question mark, exclamation point ×4. Yes, it is a dating stream. And I will be asking Fight the Flat Earth for his dating advice. Excuse me. Taking Back Eden, FE, what's up? Emergency Socks, Dan Morris, Individual One, Askin Raziv, good advice. I read your comment. Matthew Stevenson, and what's surname? So we got a little bit of troll sniffing around, so mods, be aware of that. Don't get too band happy, but I'm sure they'll be in. What's up, they? Shines. And many more to come. Benton G. There we go. Data on the plane. What's up, Data?
Brandon, I'm ready when you are.
All right. Just 1 second. And, well, let's just get to it. Let me put the Streamlabs link in the chat for you guys. And if you want to ask him a question, then we can do that. And I will make sure that it gets read. If you want to make a comment, you want to tell me how bad I suck. I am not a natural debater, but hopefully this goes pretty well. And we'll get that going through Streamlabs or either Super Chat, either one. All right, let me unmute him and let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Fight the Flat Earth, what's up, man? You got me?
Oh, how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for agreeing for this conversation. Hello to everybody on your channel.
No problem. And if the audience could just tell me if Fight the Flat Earth is coming through for them pretty well, then we'll be all set to go. And I do see that I've got super tiny camera. For some reason this keeps jumping on me, so bear with me for 1 second while I do some boring fixes here. All right, I think we're good. All right, cool. Yeah, so yeah, no problem. I'm happy to talk to you. I know you had some questions about what I think about NASA fakery and whatnot, so happy to discuss that.
That was one of the things. I've been looking at a few of your talks about NASA and especially about the Mars rover recently. And I just wanted to ask why you think NASA fakes stuff, because I don't see any evidence of fakery.
Yeah, well, you know, you're probably going to be disappointed because I'm not going to be able to give you a smoking gun and say, here, look at this. This is clear, 100% evidence that NASA's faking things. I come from a general point of view of not trusting the government. And especially when there's coincidences involved or anything that I find suspicious, then I tend to discount that information right out of the gate, unless I can, you know, touch it, feel it, if I can substantiate it in some other way. So it's mainly a philosophical point of view that I come from, but there are a lot of kind of hints that tell me that NASA is faking stuff.
Like what?
Oh, am I sharing something else in the?
Oh, sugar! No, that's me. That's my bad.
Oh, okay.
I've got the wrong thing up.
All right.
1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Wrong desktop capture. Zoom. There we go. My bad. There we go. That's better. Right. So yeah, if you got any particular evidence at all, like any videos or anything that you think this is evidence that they faked something, you know, because you said, you know, you don't trust something if it could be suspicious. You know, what to you is suspicious about anything that NASA have done?
Well, that's a good question, and I'll show you one of them that I think is the most suspicious of all. And let me share my screen with you right now, and I'm sure you've seen this before, but it's one of my favorite pieces of footage because it just it looks like a cheesy 70s movie. So let me share here. And there we go. That should be good. Let me know if you see my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm sure you're familiar with this piece of footage, but this is the lunar takeoff from Apollo 17.
Yeah.
And let me just hit play for a second. We'll watch it together, and I'm sure it'll become clear to you why I think this points to fakery. So let me hit play. There's the lunar lander sitting on supposedly the moon with the background. And there it goes with a spark of color and lifts off into the sky. Pretty amazing, I would say. And when I look at that, I go, wow, was that shot for some, 70s movie, like I said? Or are they really expecting us to believe this is real? I mean, it just looks so fake. Can you at least agree that it looks like something from a cheesy movie?
I think it looks as it should. When you take into account what's actually happening there, it's lifting off from something that doesn't have an atmosphere of 1/6 of Earth's gravity. That's all the thrust it needs. You can see the flames that are coming out of the bottom as they push off of the part that it detaches from. Why wouldn't there be sparks? Plus the cameras aren't great. It's gonna, not capture exactly the colors that it was, but to me, that's what it should look like. I don't understand why it should look any different. You're not expecting to see massive plumes of smoke or anything, and big flames, because you don't need that amount of thrust to escape from the moon's gravity.
No, I'm not talking about expecting to see big flames or anything. I'm just talking about when you look at this, my first impression is this is not real. Now, you can say that this is what I would expect to see and come up with all these reasons, the atmosphere, and there shouldn't be a smoke plume, all that stuff you just said. But my question for you was, does it look fake to you? Your answer is no, that's fine. For me, when I look at this, I go, this screams fake to me.
To me, the one thing I can say about it is it looks crappy. It looks like it was recorded with a camera from the 70s. I look at some of my family videos from the late 80s, and they look absolutely awful. If this was recorded with a 4K camera from today, it might look a little bit better, but it looks like it does because that's what they recorded it with back in the 70s. But I don't think it looks fake, because to me, it looks like it should. That's what I expect to see with something detaching from the LEM and going back into space.
Well, when else have you ever seen anything that looks like this? When have you seen something that takes off from the ground, shoots out sparks of color, and just kind of lifts up off of the surface of the Earth?
Well, this isn't off the surface of the Earth. This is off the surface of the moon. And
recorded. Have you seen?
That's
kind of my point. Have you ever seen anything like this on Earth or anywhere else?
No, because you wouldn't expect to see that on Earth. When a rocket takes off from Earth, it needs a lot more power to get up there.
Okay, so you've convinced yourself that this is what it should look like, and that it's real, and that's fine. So that's kind of where the difference in you and I lies, is when I look at this and I go, this looks fake to me, along with many other things. I don't give NASA the benefit of the doubt. I don't give the government the benefit of the doubt. I want some substantive proof.
I also don't give NASA the benefit of the doubt, right? I wouldn't automatically look at this and go, well, yeah, that's completely true. I look at this and go, well, what should it look like? What should I expect to see? And when I think about what I should expect to see with the physics of what's happening and the equipment they had at the time, that's pretty much what I expect to see from something recorded back then.
So to me, that sounds like I've told myself a story about what I should see. That story happens to match what I see in this video. Therefore, I think it's real.
It's not a story. I've critically analyzed. I've looked at this and said, okay, this is what's being shown. Now, let's put that aside and let's think what should be seen. Let's think what I should see based on the physics of what's happening and the equipment they had to record it. Right? If I was to recreate it in that situation with the equipment and everything that they had, what would it look like then? And what I come up with when I critically analyze it is it would look like that. That's what we expect to see, especially with the little flames and everything coming out the bottom, just as it's pushing off of the thing, showing you that there's thrust going up. I don't expect to see anything else. And this isn't the only time you've seen this. They tried this particular shot 3 times. Apollo 15, 16, 17. They tried to do this. The first 2 times they didn't quite get it right. And this was the time that they managed to actually get the shot of making the camera pan up to be correct after practicing on the past 2. But we've seen the same thing multiple times, which to me is then saying, well, okay, well, it's been done multiple times. That's substantiating it because it's been repeated. And again, when you critically analyze and look at what you should see, that is what we expect to see. I don't expect to see anything else apart from that.
Okay, so that's one example. Sounds like we have a disagreement there, and that you're guessing on what you should see or critically analyzing it, as you said. Then there is just the general. Let me see if I can find something from the moon. Just the general look of the moon footage itself. What it looks like to me is a set, and with backdrops. Very much looks the entire time. You'll see this foreground, and then you'll see either a distant background or just space. It's always like a shortened view. And it very much looks to me like it is manufactured footage.
Okay. Now, with this footage you're about to show me, and with what you just showed me with the thing separating from the LEM, what would you expect to see? What, can you tell me what you would see that would convince you that it was real, or that it was at least looked real?
What would convince me that it was real?
Or that it looked real?
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't ever look at something and go, "Oh yeah, that's real," because it's on a TV screen. You should never do that. I mean,
agree.
Always kind of look into stuff, but for you to be able to look at something and you go, "Yeah, you know what, that looks pretty. That's what I expect to see." What would you expect to see?
It's a good question, and it's one that's come up several times, and I don't know that I have a good answer for it. It's kind of like when you watch a movie and you see CGI, or you see a show that you're watching. You can just kind of look at it and go, yeah, that looks fake. It's not an exact science, but I would expect to see some kind of distant landscapes, like we do on Earth. You look out at Earth, you're standing on the side of a hill, you're standing on the top of a mountain, and you look up and you have a near view, a mid view, and a far view. We don't ever see that in this moon footage. It's always the same with this short near view, and then either space or a far view. It just seems like it fits perfectly what I would expect to see for manufactured footage.
One of the things about the moon missions is that they had particular places they wanted to land, and it was inside craters a lot of the time, because that would be the most interesting place to find geological activity or things like that. So a lot of the time what you're seeing in the distance is, edges of a crater or surrounding mountains and stuff. So you're not going to be able to see things that are really further than that. However, when Reds was on my channel about 6 months ago debating someone about the moon landings, he actually brought up 3D modeled areas from photographs taken from the moon and compared them with the photographs, and they completely matched what you would expect to see on those areas.
Yeah, I would expect that they would have done their homework when they decided to launch this operation and studied every bit of footage, telescopic, images of the moon that they possibly could. So I wouldn't expect that you'd be able to look at the moon and go, oh no, you know what, there's a bump right here, or they should be on a mountain, but they're in a valley right here, and point out something so obvious. This is obviously, if it is fake, which I believe it is, it's the biggest psychological operation in probably the history of the world, at least the United States history.
I mean, you're right there. It would have to be the biggest cover-up and conspiracy ever constructed, because it's not just people at NASA that would have to fake it. It would have to be also the millions of independent radio operators around the world that track the moon missions, the several different agencies around the world that sometimes had to transfer the signal from the moon back to NASA, like places in Australia. It would have to be all the civilians involved in all the operations, the cameramen, everyone, their families, for the generations throughout NASA's time. And it would equate to millions and millions and millions of people that would have to keep this secret. I don't think something like that could be compartmentalized. It would have to be everyone involved to organize something, a deception on that scale. But the amount of people that would have to be involved mathematically says that it's very unlikely that that would be the case. People would have said something by now. It just doesn't make sense that so many millions of people would keep that secret to their deathbed.
Do you really
You
think
know,
that they would involve millions of people if they were going to pull off an operation like this? I think that's kind of a,
I think they would have to.
not completely intellectually honest position to take, that there would be millions of people. Would they let on in a secret? Hey, we're going to fake the moon mission. We need to tell every single person involved in this program, their entire families, and everybody in the media that we're doing this. No, they definitely would compartmentalize it, just like they do any other psychological operation that they pull off, and they would tell just the barest few people. They'd still build all the rockets, they'd still build all the equipment, they'd still do everything they possibly could real, except for the parts that involve actually going to the moon and launching out into space. That's the only part they'd have to fake, and there was only a few people involved in that.
No, there's so many people involved, mainly because when the missions were launched, civilians, just completely independent radio operators, could track the missions, the positions of the rockets, where the signals were coming from. Millions of people all over the world could triangulate the positions independently and confirm what NASA were saying. And then you have to take into account all the other agencies around the world that were tracking it and transmitting it. You couldn't avoid millions of people being involved in it and knowing what was going on.
Can you tell me more about this tracking, this radio tracking and triangulation? Because I honestly think that could also be fake, that they would expect there to be radio operators who would want to track this thing. They would expect those kind of things to take place during this mission. So how hard would it be to put something up, maybe say something similar to the Echo satellite that they put up in the early 60s, or a high altitude plane, or anything to put out a signal to spoof these moon messages? So can you show me some evidence that would falsify that they could fake that?
Yeah, simple maths. Triangulation with 2 points, you could only have one receiving point. If you've got the angles that the signal's coming from 2 different points on Earth, there is only one position it could come from. You can't spoof that signal coming from a different place. That, you can use in 2 places, you can triangulate the position. But when you've got hundreds of thousands of independent ham radio operators and amateur radio astronomers tracking it, and they all triangulate it to the same place, maths cannot lie like that. Triangles are triangles.
So,
you've got triangles
yeah, sure,
that are going to add up to 180 degrees. It's as simple as that.
Well, sure, they're tracking the spoof, which is a single location. So they're triangulating to what they think is this mission going to the moon, and it's actually this high altitude balloon or whatever it is that they're using to get this signal out there. So I would expect that they would all triangulate somewhat to the same position, which would be what, the direction of the moon? That doesn't seem like it'd be so hard to do. I know all the big brains at NASA are capable of pulling something like that off.
Yeah, triangulation gives you distances, like actual distances, and you can't have a balloon saying, oh no, the signal's actually coming from somewhere else. You figure out where the signal is coming from. You can literally get the angle that you have to elevate the satellites and stuff to receive the signal. And when you track it, and it turns out it's 250,000 miles away, that's not something a high altitude balloon can do. Triangles don't lie. Triangles are 3 sides. The angles inside add up to 180 degrees. If you've got 2 angles, you can figure out the rest. And if you've got even more angles and they all correlate on the same position, that's not something that can be spoofed. For all those independent positions, tracking something, a high altitude balloon wouldn't be in the position for all these individual things pointing at some 250,000 miles away. They wouldn't even be able to be pointing at the high altitude balloon because they're tracking something else that's actually in a different direction.
Do you have any evidence that this actually took place, that they actually triangulated and calculated to 250,000 feet? Because that's what I asked you for, was some kind of evidence that would falsify that they could fake that.
There is records from ham radio operators, hundreds and thousands. I could point, I don't have them at hand right now, but any simple searching can find all the ham radio operators that independently verified what NASA were saying.
You mean they heard the transmission? That's what you're talking about. There was all these ham operators that heard the transition. There wasn't a ton of people out there triangulating the position.
Not just heard the transmission, but had to get their equipment pointing in the right direction
at the moon.
And then, no, not necessarily at the moon, at where the rocket was at the time, at where Apollo was actually going. So yeah, when you've got independent people actually tracking it, you can use the the data received from them and triangulate the position of where it is. And again, triangulation doesn't lie. You can't look at one thing and then it say actually you're looking somewhere else when you've got so many people tracking the same thing.
Well, I'd be interested in seeing the actual evidence
and
for
it wasn't
that.
Just,
but
I can certainly get together some web pages showing you the details of the tracking what the people did. Like I said, there is so much evidence, third-party evidence. Or we don't even have to go to NASA to verify what NASA said. You can go to Australian Space Agency and see that they had to receive certain parts of the data and then transfer it back to Houston at certain times. So there's other people that are involved than just NASA.
So anyway, back to the that's fine. I look forward to some actual empirical evidence that would falsify the ability to spoof it. But
I will get that together.
We can table that. We can table that. Yeah. So other than that, is there any other way that you think they would have to involve millions of people? Because you did say millions of people would have to be involved in this.
Well, over time, it wouldn't just be those people. It would it would become more and more people to have to keep the secret over time.
Why would it have to be more and more people over time to keep the secret?
Because people would have to know about what happened, where the actual records were, how to tell the lie. It just, and in each organization, the Soviets tracking the lunar missions, the Chinese, every agency around the world would have to tell new people about this and how to keep the lie. The amount of people that knew would exponentially grow.
It doesn't sound like it adds up to millions and millions of people to me. They'd have an inner circle within each area, and they would be on a need to know basis for something like this. This is, if this is a fake, then this is their crown jewel of fakery. This is one of their centerpieces of their psychological operations.
Well, it's not just it wouldn't just be a US psychological operation. It would have to be every government in the world doing the same psychological operation on them.
Not every government in the world. It would have to be those with the capability for
every
putting
government
rockets
in the world,
up, right?
The moon landing happened, so
which we're all involved with. There's there's space treaties. All the different space agencies are pretty much on the same page,
Soviets
right?
Would have called out BS.
Russia?
Yeah, you don't think they would have actually called out BS?
I don't, because I suspect what happened is Russia started faking stuff themselves. So the U.S. realized that Russia was faking stuff and decided to do the same thing. So it's kind of like mutually assured destruction. And they do have motives for doing for faking these type of things. That's pretty clear. But no, I don't think that. Imagine Russia coming out in their newspapers and going, the U.S. faked the moon missions. They're obvious fakery. Or imagine any country coming out and saying that. They'd be laughed off the face of the earth, just like you guys laugh at us, and it would be a political situation at that point.
Everyone in Russia would have believed it. That's for sure. Let's not even talk about Russia. What about China? China also have the ability to track these things, and China would not have kept the secret. They would have called out Russia and US without a doubt. There's,
Why do you say that? Why do you think that China would call us? So they didn't even have a space program back then, so they were kind of at the whim of whatever information we told them.
To track stuff. Of course they did.
We just talked about the tracking, though. Let's just table the tracking, because we need some evidence for that falsified the spoofing of the signal. What I'm saying is, if Russia was faking it too, they wouldn't have called out the United States. They call out the United States fakery, then their fakery is going to get called out. That's a pretty heavy political situation to put themselves in.
China has recently given photographs of the moon landing sites.
When China and the United States are basically partners at this point for all the stuff that you see in the media, that all the drama between them, they build half the shit that we consume. They're basically our factory in the United States, the world's factory for that matter. They're not going to damage that relationship. And at this point, you could consider them an ally, a frenemy, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Now, it's not just Russia. and China. It's every other country that has now space agencies. India, Japan.
India's our ally. Japan's our ally.
So just because they're allies, so they're all keeping the secret together. So everyone within all these little individual inner circles are having to all keep a secret. That it ends up being a lot of people that have to keep a secret, right?
Not millions and millions, though, is it?
You're saying about there being a high altitude balloon spoofing a signal.
Possibly.
I want to go back to that for a sec. Could you tell me how that would happen?
How they would spoof a radio signal from the atmosphere?
How they would spoof a position of a radio signal?
Well, that's why I'm asking you for some evidence that would falsify that they would have the capability of doing that. I would imagine you'd launch something.
One that's claimed that you're the one that's claimed that there's the ability to spoof a signal coming from another position with a high altitude balloon.
Yeah, you can play if you broadcast a radio signal from a high altitude balloon. That's possible, right?
Yeah, but how would you then say that radio signal is coming from 250,000 miles away rather than 30,000 feet up?
Well, that's what you need to provide evidence for that falsifies that it couldn't be spoofed. All you've done right now is say that really amateur ham radio operators have falsified this, but you haven't provided any evidence. We need some empirical data in that area. I agree.
You're the one. Hold on. You're the one claiming that they possibly had a balloon up there spoofing the signal.
Yeah.
So
I'm claiming that that's a possibility.
Empirical. Well, have you got any evidence of that?
Well, you can launch a high altitude balloon, and you could broadcast a radio signal from a high altitude balloon, or a plane for that matter. That's a possibility, right? That is something that's possible.
But that's not answering how you would spoof a signal coming from another position.
I know that's not. That's why I'm asking you for your evidence that it's been falsified, that it could be spoofed.
Well, no, you would need to provide evidence that it could.
No, I don't.
Right?
No.
Well, yeah, you do. You're the one making the claim.
No, you made the claim that it was triangulated at 250,000 miles away. Yeah, that's your claim.
That can be substantiated, right? But regardless of that, you're saying that there is possibly a balloon that is broadcasting a radio signal that is spoofing the position of where the signal is coming from to multiple different sites at the same time. And I'm asking how that would happen. That's your claim. Is there any evidence of that?
Is there any evidence that you could broadcast a radio signal from a high altitude balloon? Yes, I think that there is evidence of that.
And make it spoof a signal that for it showing the signal coming from somewhere else. That's your claim.
Well, no, you haven't substantiated that the signal was coming from somewhere else.
So that can be substantiated.
So I thought we were going to table that because you were going to come back with some evidence that actually happened, that it was actually triangulated, and that falsified that the signal could be coming from somewhere else.
Regardless of the evidence that I can provide, you're the one that has said that a balloon has the ability to spoof a signal coming from another position.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said was they could have spoofed a signal, meaning they could have put a high altitude balloon up or a high altitude plane and broadcast a radio signal to fool the people on the ground who are tracking it into thinking that that's coming from the moon.
Okay,
that's all I've said. I said it's a possibility.
How are they going to fool the people into thinking it's coming from the moon?
You're going to point your antenna in the direction of the moon, and you're going to get the signal from that they're broadcasting.
Okay, and you not think two different positions on Earth receiving a signal would debunk that entirely?
Possibly. That's what I'm asking you for evidence for, that has been debunked or falsified already.
That's absolutely easy because a signal came in from Australia and was routed back to the USA. So, yeah, that debunks it.
No, it doesn't debunk it. You just claimed it debunked it, and you haven't even provided anything. You've just made a declaration that you've debunked it. That's all you've done.
No. I mean, that's a fact that Australia received some of the signals and transferred it to Houston, Texas.
So what?
That's not me just saying it. That actually happened.
So what?
So Australia and America are on two very different points on the globe. Therefore, if they're both looking at the moon and receiving a signal, then it can't be from a plane flying in front of the moon, because that wouldn't work.
Why not?
Because of perspective from the position of the moon, you wouldn't both be able to point something at the moon and see a plane in front of it. If the plane is going to be, well, how far up? Like 30,000 feet?
Who said anything about seeing the plane in front of the moon? We're talking about a signal coming from a general direction. If you're pointing it at the moon
and getting a signal from a plane, that plane would have to be in front of the moon from both positions on Earth.
It wouldn't have to be in front of the moon. It'd have to be in the direction of the moon.
And do you not think that is a problem when you have signals coming from both America and Australia?
No. Why would that be a problem? They both point at the moon. Signal comes from that direction.
How would they both see the plane? To be able to
no one said that they were going to see a plane.
Well, how are they going to get the signal then?
What do you mean how they're going to get a signal? They're going to point their antenna in the direction of the moon and receive a signal. I don't know what. I mean, I think maybe you're thinking that the Earth is
where's the plane? Where's the plane going to be?
I think that might be the problem.
Even on a flat plane, unless you're saying the moon is within the range of a plane, if the plane is broadcasting the signal, that means whoever's receiving it has to be able to see the plane, right? And if they are pointing their antennas at the moon and both seeing the plane, that means that the plane would have to be in two different positions at the same time to be able to transmit the signal for them to be able to see it, to spoof that signal coming from a different position. And also you can actually time the, you record the time it takes for a signal to be received and come back. And that would cause a problem because you would be able to see that, oh, wait, that shows that this has just come from something that's 30,000 feet away, not apparently 250,000 miles.
Possibly. So, yeah, provide some evidence that falsifies that they could have spoofed this signal. That's what I've been asking you for. But let me address your points. No, hold on. Let me address your points. So you said they'd both have to see the plane. I never claimed they'd both have to see the plane. They certainly wouldn't both have to see the plane. The signal would be coming from the direction of the moon. You'd point your antenna at the moon and you'd receive the signal. I don't understand what's so hard. Oh, furthermore, if there is that problem, who says that they couldn't put up, say, two signals in two different locations to spoof the signal? You got to use a little creativity. These are some bright geniuses that work at NASA, aren't they? You don't think they're capable of this stuff?
Brandon, you're the one that's making claims here. No. You're the one saying that they would have the ability to do this, right? So that's what I'd like some evidence of. I can provide plenty of evidence, and believe me, I will, of independent verification of positions tracked from ham radio operators from 1969 onwards. That's no problem. But you're the one claiming that they could possibly have now multiple planes broadcasting a spoofing signal that shows that it's coming from many hundreds of times further away than it's actually coming from. So I would like to know by what mechanism they're able to do that. How can they alter the time the signal takes? How can they spoof the position and show you that it's actually here and not there when you can triangulate from just two different positions? Because if there's two different planes, like you said, then that would cause a problem with triangulation from just the two positions and give you conflicting positions as to where the signal was actually coming from. So, there's so many problems with what you're claiming, and I can provide evidence, and I will, but I would like some evidence from you that this is even remotely possible.
Well, why don't we try to stick to the claim that you originally made, was that they triangulated to a position that's 250,000 miles away for the radio signals, and that falsifies the possibility that it wasn't on the moon. That was the original claim you made. I offered alternatives, which I'm surprised you don't think NASA would be capable of doing something like this. And you think they're capable of landing people on the moon and dune bugging on the moon, but you don't think they're capable of coming up with some kind of spoofing signal. That's interesting, but let's focus on your original claim, and we'll go from there.
Let's be clear, Brandon. It's not my claim, all right? That is what actually happened. You are the one claiming that there is a possibility it's being faked. You're the one going against what's being said. So I would like some evidence that what you're saying is even remotely possible. Not just, you don't think NASA could do that. No, I don't think NASA can bend the laws of physics and time. I don't think that's possible. So is there any evidence that they had the equipment to do what you are saying that they could do?
You haven't provided any evidence to substantiate your original claim. Why are you trying to shift the burden on me? You're the one who said that they triangulated 250 miles away to this signal, and that couldn't be broadcast from anywhere else, or that falsifies that the moon landings didn't take place. That is your position, correct?
So let's be clear.
And then this bending the laws of physics.
Brandon,
you haven't shown how that would have to happen in order for.
Hold on.
You haven't provided anything.
Brandon, you are the one that is making the claims, not me.
No, you certainly made the original claim.
You are the one that no, you made the original claim. That it was somehow spoofed.
No, you made the original claim that they triangulated this signal to 250,000 miles away from multiple locations.
That was a response to your claim. You are the one that is making the claim that they somehow spoofed the signal.
No, I'm saying that's a possibility. You're saying that the triangulation of the signal from the moon
that it's a possibility.
Proves the moon landing. That's what you said.
Provide evidence that it's a possibility.
Provide evidence that they actually triangulated the location to 240,000 miles from multiple positions on Earth.
Yeah, Australia and America both tracked it. That's a fact. That's my evidence.
That's not evidence for you to declare that they both tracked it and that proves it, and that's a fact. That's not evidence. That's not how it works.
So you don't understand that Australia tracked the moon landing. That the Soviets tracked the moon landing.
So you're just going to say that, well, if you don't believe that Australia tracked the moon landing, then, you know, I'm right. Is that your position now?
Well, the data is freely available. Okay. You are the one claiming that all the freely available data is fake. You are the one claiming.
No, I'm not. I never made that claim. Don't put words in my mouth.
You are the one. No, you absolutely have made that claim.
No, I did not say that all the publicly available data is fake. That is not what I said.
You are the one saying that there's a possibility that they have spoofed the signal. That is your claim.
Yes, there's a possibility, and you're the one who made the claim that this proves the moon landing because they triangulated to 250,000 miles away, and you need to prove that.
Can you substantiate your claim, yes or no?
Can I substantiate my claim that it would be possible for them to spoof a radio signal?
Yes.
Can you substantiate your original claim that they falsified?
No, Brandon, stop.
That they proved that the moon landings were taking place 250,000 miles away by triangulating from multiple locations, because that was your original claim.
Okay, so
I gave you a possible alternative, and you're trying to shift the burden back onto me.
So the job of receiving signals from the moon fell to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Tracking Center, Goldstone, California, and facilities in Australia at both Honeysuckle Creek near Canberra and Parkes, approximately 380 kilometers west of Sydney. These facilities were chosen because they had the moon in view at the scheduled time of the moonwalk. You can go to the websites that I've literally just gone to and find all the data. To keep continuous contact with the craft, at least 3 tracking stations were needed, spaced about 120 degrees apart in longitude. As such, Australia was in the right place to host the station. It also didn't hurt the Australians, was a politically stable country and friendly to the US. So they've actually, on this website, they've got links to all the data from Australia tracking it, as well as NASA both tracking it. The fact that they had 2 positions alone independently tracking the rockets debunks your assertion there could possibly be a plane spoofing the position of the radio signal.
No, it doesn't.
Coming from.
No, and you've just made a declaration. You've made another claim that you've debunked it with those radio signals, and all you've done is read a website and say that the data's there. That's all you've done.
Yeah. Do you want to go and have a look for it yourself? There's evidence there. That's how you find evidence.
Well, yeah, I want you to show me the evidence, provide me the evidence. That's why I said, let's table this, and then we'll take a look at the evidence and analyze it. But so far, you've just made a declaration.
And I'm going to show the evidence, but I would also like you to provide evidence of your claim that it's possible for them to spoof the radio signal in that manner. Is that fair?
Sure.
Right, cool. I'd love to see that evidence. Do you have any?
So you're going to put me on the spot to provide evidence that how they spoof the radio signal.
If you don't have any right now, then you can, like I'm going to do, and gather a bunch of information for you. Can you gather me information to back up your assertion that it's possible for a plane to spoof the signal to multiple locations and to bend the laws of time and physics?
No, I can't provide you the evidence for what you just said, which is a ridiculous statement.
Oh, right. That's what you're claiming to be.
No, it's not. That's not what I'm claiming. You just reworded it to suit your argument. That's all you did.
That assertion would have to be part of your assertion, because you can absolutely track the time that radio signals take. And there will be a difference in time from a 30,000 foot high altitude plane to a rocket that is 250,000 miles away. There will be a substantial difference in the time that the signal is taken to get there.
Who was it that tracked these signals in that little blurb you just read? Who was tracking these signals?
It was 3 stations staffed by Australians. Tinnimbella near Canberra Island, Lagoon near Warrnambool, South Australia, and Honeysuckle Creek. 3 different locations across Australia, as well as places in the Soviets, in China. Oh, wow, India was also tracking it at the same time, according to this article. So yeah, I mean, I will gather you as much data as possible to show that there is independent third-party verification of the position of the rockets at certain times. And I would like you to provide me in return technical specifications of something that has the ability to spoof signal to multiple locations.
Now you want technical specifications. See, you've taken my what I originally said, which was it would be possible to spoof this radio signal, and you've expanded it to include bending space-time and the technical manuals and whatnot. I mean,
if you're saying that
let's see your evidence for the triangulation and that falsifies and proves that it's 250,000 miles away, and then we'll go from there.
If you're saying that it's possible, then you need to provide evidence that it's possible. And for that to be possible, there needs to be some kind of technical specifications to show how it was made, and also the ability to alter time, because that would have to be part of what's
that's ridiculous.
You don't think that you can use radar, for instance, to look at a high altitude plane and see that it's not on the moon?
So once we see your evidence that they actually triangulated the location to 250,000 miles away, we'll go from there.
Cool. And cool. Like I said, I'd love to see your evidence as well. That's great.
Yep. Okay. So do you have any other evidence that you personally makes you believe that the moon landings are real?
Oh, retroreflectors on the moon. Lots of physics students have used various places around the world to fire high-powered lasers at retroreflectors left on the moon. And we know what speed light travels, so we can figure out the distance and the direction they've come from when you fire them. That's pretty good evidence that the moon landings were riddle. We couldn't have put retroreflectors on the moon without sending at least something there.
So shooting a laser or a signal at the moon and getting a reply, getting a signal back, proves the moon landings? Is that what you're saying?
It proves that we at least went there and put something there, yes.
That's pretty weak, I got to tell you.
How is that weak?
Well, first of all, you're claiming that the retroreflectors were put by the Apollo missions? Is that your claim?
Yeah.
And that they shoot these signals and they're coming from those retroreflectors?
You fire a laser.
No, I understand how it works, but how could we possibly validate that is what's taking place, that they're actually firing at these retroreflectors that they put on the moon during these moon landings? How could we possibly do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to answer. You time how long the signal takes to get back to you, and you look at the strength of the signal, so you can tell what reflective capabilities it's come from. It's quite simple. You can easily use lasers to calculate the distance of things.
I understand your theory, but how would I validate that is what's taking place, that these lasers are being fired out and they're hitting retroreflectors that were put by the moon missions, and that's what I'm getting back? That's the signal I'm getting back. How could I possibly validate that?
And do it yourself.
How would that validate that that's where that came from, that it hit a retroreflector that they put there during the moon missions? How could I possibly know that?
Otherwise, how would you get the signal back?
Well, that's what I'm asking for. How do you know that? How have you narrowed it down to knowing that it's hitting the retroreflectors that were put there during the Apollo mission?
How long the signal takes to get there and back.
And that to you is evidence that the moon landings weren't faked.
It shows that there's something there that we put there.
It shows that you fire a signal and you get a signal back. That's what it shows.
From a specific thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. How do you know it's that specific thing? And how do you know that it was put there by the
strength of
Apollo
the signal
missions?
coming back, knowing you can test the strength of the signal coming back, knowing what reflective surfaces it came off and stuff. We have the particular location and coordinates of where they are. You fire it at that point, and you happen to get back what you expect. What it definitely does is confirm the distance to a reflective surface on the moon, a unnaturally reflective surface, which means that whether it was the Apollo missions or some robotic mission, something went to the moon and put something there.
You're shooting at the moon, you're getting a signal back. I understand that. You're making all kinds of assumptions from
There's
A
no
to B.
assumptions in the speed of light.
You are.
There's absolutely no assumptions in the speed of light.
There's no assumptions about the medium that it's going through.
No.
What's happening with that signal when it comes back. Okay.
No.
It's not very convincing to me, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, that personal incredulity is kind of irrelevant, but
Well, like I said, yes, part of this is my incredulity of the moon landings. That is part of it, yeah.
Well,
you've decided to trust the information that you've been given, and I am skeptical of it.
Third-party verified independent information. Have you ever looked for the third-party independent verification
of the moon landings?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure I have, yeah.
So you never came across the stories of radio, ham radio operators?
Yes, I've heard that before, yeah.
Okay, and you never looked into the data of where the signals were triangulated from or anything yourself?
I have looked into that before, yes. It's not convincing to me.
Did you find triangulation data?
I don't remember.
That seems like something that would be pretty fundamental to a bit of your research, Brandon, honestly.
Well, there's lots of stories that you guys have. And what about the things that I've pointed to?
Facts. Sorry, you said stories there. I think you meant to say verifiable facts.
No. Sorry. You haven't provided the evidence for the triangulation. So I'm still waiting for the evidence for the triangulation. So I thought we were going to table that. Yeah. You seem to want to keep going back to it, which is fine. But neither of us have provided any evidence regarding that. Sorry?
Anyway, the fact that there is a reflective surface on the moon that you can literally calculate the distance and time taken to get there and back with a laser verifies that we went there and put something there.
No, it doesn't.
Well, you're claiming it doesn't. How is it there?
I don't even know if there is anything there. My understanding is that we were firing signals at the moon previous to that and getting a signal back.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing, right? You can fire signals at the moon, right, and get a signal back, but the strength of the signal is what's important, right? If they fire it at a specific location, they get back a much stronger signal, a much stronger amount of light energy than if they fire it at a different point, right? Meaning that they can tell that there is a difference in the reflective surface. So if they fire it just a standard bit of rock, they get back a very weak signal. If they fire at a reflective, unnatural surface, they get back a very strong signal. And we know the specific point to fire the laser to get back that strong signal, meaning that there is an artificially reflective surface there.
Were they firing signals at the moon previously and getting a response back before they put these retroreflectors there?
They did radar experiments, I believe.
And did they get a signal back when they fired the radar at the moon previous to these retroreflectors supposedly being placed on it?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you see why that's not very convincing to me? I understand all that other stuff you said about the signal stronger or whatnot.
Radar's different to laser, right? When you're using a laser, you can be very specific, right?
So did they fire lasers at the moon previous to putting the retroreflectors there?
No, I don't think laser technology was around.
So they put the retroreflector and then fired lasers at the moon after they had put the retroreflectors there, and then said, based on the signal we got back from this laser, we know that the retroreflectors are there. What are they comparing it to?
Other positions that they fire it to on the moon.
So
if you fire it at just a random bit of regalia on the moon, you get back a very weak signal. If you fire it at a artificially reflective surface, you get back a signal that is orders of magnitude stronger, right? And that's the thing. We have specific coordinates that we can fire these lasers at to know that we will get back a certain strength signal. And if we fire it at another coordinate, we will get back a much, much weaker signal, like, thousands of times weaker. But that shows that if we fire at these specific coordinates, there is an artificially reflective surface sending back the laser at a much more powerful magnitude.
Have you ever fired a laser at the moon personally?
Well, I've been involved in setting things up, but I've never actually done it myself. But in physics experiments that we fired lasers at other things, I've been involved in setting up the lasers for it, but never actually done the experiments myself. But that, whether I've done it or not, is kind of irrelevant. Thousands, probably more than thousands of people have actually done it. And I believe there is still 3 observatories in America that allow civilians to come in and take part in the experiment of laser ranging.
Yeah. Yeah. So we fired a laser at the moon and we got a stronger signal back. It doesn't really support the whole story of the moon landings. Do you see that? I mean,
no, I think it does.
You can make an argument for it, but
it shows.
I have to make a mental leap there from
something there.
What's that?
Right. It shows that we went there. Something went to the moon and physically put something there.
Well, possibly it shows that something went to the moon and placed something on the moon. It doesn't prove that the moon landings happen.
Well, it at least shows that
even if I give you that there's a retroreflector on the moon.
Yeah, and that, well, it at least shows that we went to the moon and put something there, and it shows that the distance to the moon is accurate.
Now that I would argue with, that the distance to the moon is accurate. Because what are you basing that on? I mean, when have you validated that, okay, if I fire a laser out into space at this celestial object and I get a signal back in this amount of time, that means it's this far away. When have you validated that that is what you should get? I mean, what are you baselining it against?
I validated the speed of light. We know what c is in a vacuum. We know what the speed of light is, so we know if you fire a laser, it should take this long to get there and back. I mean, what more do you need? You make that's what science is. You make a prediction and then you test that prediction. And if you predict, oh, if we fire this laser and it has to take this amount of time to get to the moon, hit the retroreflector and come back, it should take this long to receive a signal at this magnitude. And lo and behold, when you do it, it takes that long and you get the signal of that magnitude.
Do you take the movement of the Earth in its orbit around the sun, or the movement based on the sun's movement, whatever the hell that's called, its orbit around the, what is it, the great attractor?
Well, the speed of light is relative to the observer. So you're firing the light, for you, it's going to be traveling at the speed of light from the position that you are going. And as the moon is orbiting around the sun with us, whilst also going around us, we kind of don't have to take the orbit of the sun into account, of the Earth around the sun into account. All we have to do is know that we're firing at a position on the moon. And as the laser takes only a couple of seconds to get there and back, we can do pretty damn accurate. And I think it was in 1996, they did it within centimeters of accuracy.
Centimeters of accuracy, what? The accuracy of what?
Of determining where the laser ranging actual retroreflectors were in the distance to the moon. Again, I'd have to get the exact data and the experiments of that. I'm looking through my notes now because I did have that on here somewhere.
So what you're saying is the laser travels with us
to the distance to the moon.
The laser travels with us. You fire it out. It only takes, what you said, seconds to get it back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's about 3 seconds in total, about a second and a half to get there and
back. So
back.
none of the orbits impacted at all?
Not when you're orbiting together. You don't have to take into account the fact that you're orbiting around the sun, because you and the moon are both doing that. And you fired the laser from your point of view. So for you, it's going at the speed of light from your position.
Well, I'll tell you what would make a lot more sense is
if
if
have to get into a bit of relativity there to explain that. But
no, I don't want to get into relativity because that's just fantasy land as far as I'm concerned. But we don't have to go there.
I mean, wow. Okay, that's another conversation. We literally wouldn't be able to be talking now without our understanding of relativity.
Right, right, right. No, I understand. I get where you're coming from, but okay, so you've got this laser, you've got the triangulation. Do you have anything else?
Of evidence of the moon landings.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been done multiple times, all the videos, the pictures. I mean, none of that's ever been shown to be fake. So, I mean,
why haven't they gone back in 50 some years? Doesn't that seem strange to you that we went and what was it, 72 was the last one?
Well,
and no one else did it.
And I don't like. I'm not American, and I don't like to talk about American politics. But from what I understand, it's due to American politics. The interest in going back to the moon and hitting another golf ball and collecting some rocks went down. The funding for NASA went severely down. You know, the general interest in the moon missions went down, so it wasn't funded anymore. So instead, the funds for NASA went into things like low Earth orbit space research with the ISS. I can't speak for why other countries haven't gone back and done something. Perhaps they haven't found it necessary, but we are going back now. I mean, that's what Project Artemis is all about.
Well, we've been talking about going back for quite a while. I'll believe it when I see it. But what I find curious is that we went in 72. Well, first, we went in 69, right? So that was what, 52 years ago now? And we went back a few times and then stopped, and no other country went back. All of these allies that we have, none of them felt the need to go on a manned mission to the moon and replicate what we've done. I find that very curious, and I understand that you can make arguments about, well, it costs so much, and et cetera, et cetera. I get that, and those are all plausible explanations. But when else have we done something, explored somewhere, and one person does it and no one else follows up to do it themselves? When else has that happened?
The Mariana Trench.
No, somebody's been back to the Mariana Trench. There was 2 trips to the Mariana Trench, wasn't there?
We've had 2 trips to the Mariana Trench.
And when was the first trip to the Mariana Trench?
I'm not entirely sure when.
Well, let's look it up, because I think that was pretty recent. It wasn't 52 years ago.
No, but there's been 2 trips in total to the Mariana Trench. Why aren't people going back all the time?
Well, it hasn't been that long since we've been down to the Mariana Trench, has it? Hasn't been 52 years.
Why aren't people going all the time? And why do you believe the bottom of the Mariana Trench exists?
I'll take their word for the Mariana Trench bottom. I don't see any reason. I don't know why there'd be a reason to fake that.
There's less evidence of the.
I guess I don't really have any evidence that it's real.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally less evidence of the Mariana Trench bottom than there is of the moon landings.
Yeah, I've never really looked into the Mariana Trench.
So, I mean, yeah, quite often people do things that then aren't done again for a long, long time. Doesn't mean that they're never going to be done again. Now, we've not only got planned missions to the moon with Artemis that was announced recently, you know, we've also got planned missions to Mars. And with the advent of private space, the ability to do things is getting a lot better. The government doesn't have to spend as much money in research and development. That's all being done by billionaires like Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos. So the government doesn't have to spend as much money to do that initial research. They can just hire the people that have already done the research to fly the rockets up there and put the stuff on the moon for them, which is what the plan is with Artemis, which is probably why we've now got the planning and ability to do it now better than we have done in the past 50 years because of the advent of private space agencies.
Yeah, like I said, I know you'd have plausible excuses, but I find that very curious that they haven't been back in all that time. And one of the reasons I think they haven't been back is as the film and video technology, as the video technology increased in fidelity, it became increasingly more difficult to fake a trip to the moon. I think that's a plausible explanation.
Do you know about the issues with the filming equipment that they used on the moon, and why it was kind of hard to fake what they did back then?
No, go ahead. I may have heard this before, but go ahead.
I might have to get the exact details up, but basically it goes something like this: the standard cameras that were used on TV were a certain frames per second. I think it was like 25 frames per second or something. That was what was kind of standard used worldwide in TV in that time. And to the ones that they used on the moon were something like 10 frames per second. Okay. And people have said, oh, well, it's just, you know, it's just the footage sped up or slowed down or whatever. Right. But the problem is that to be able to slow down footage and play it back then would mean you'd have to record a lot more than you actually need to be able to then play it back at a different frames per second. And they physically didn't have the capacity to record that much data at 10 frames per second to then compress it to be able to speed it up so it looks like they're bouncing around the way they were. The technology to record the things that they did in the way they did and then fake it to be, you know, look like it is simply didn't exist back then. That's probably not a very good explanation of but basically the technology to be able to play back the tapes at a higher frame rate didn't exist then, because they could only record a certain amount because of the physical limitations of physical media.
So you think that their ability to play the video back at the correct speed falsifies their ability to fake it?
Yeah, I'm going to try and get some.
All right, I'm sure that you believe that, but I find that curious that you think that NASA is capable of coming up with all this amazing technology. I mean, how many firsts did they accomplish in their supposed moon mission, but they wouldn't be capable of coming up with a way to play back the video that they took?
Right. One sec. Let me.
Do you see where I struggle with that, though?
Well, technology exists or it doesn't. Right. Okay. So let me read this to you. Two different ways of capturing moving images. One is film, actual strips on material. Another is video, which is electronic method recording. Right. With video, you can broadcast to a television receiver. A standard motion picture film records at 24 frames per second, while broadcast television is typically 25 or 30, depending on where you are in the world. If we go along with the idea that the moon landings were taped in TV studio, then we expect them to be 30 frames per second, which was television standard at the time. However, we know that the video from the moon landing was recorded at 10 frames per second in slow scan TV with a special camera. Some people contend that when you look at people moving in slow motion, they appear to be in low gravity environment. Slowing down film requires more frames than usual. So you start with a camera capable of capturing more frames in a second than normal. This is called overcranking. When this is played back at a normal frame rate, the footage plays back for longer. If you can't overcrank your camera, you record at a normal frame rate, but you can then artificially slow down the footage. But you need a way to store the frames and generate new extra frames to slow it down. At the time of broadcast, magnetic disc recorders capable of storing slow motion footage could only capture 30 seconds in total for a playback of 90 seconds in slow motion. To capture 143 minutes in slow motion, you need to record and store 47 minutes of live action, which simply wasn't possible at the time. And they had, you know, hours and hours and hours of footage. So it literally goes against the technology that they had available at the time for recording and playing back things. And NASA didn't really invest in video technology. That's not what they were interested in.
Well, if they were faking the missions, they were certainly investing in video technology. I would imagine that they would have been on the cutting edge at that time. And it's one of those stories that, you know, I understand what you're saying, and it's a plausible explanation for kind of the technological limitations that they have. But I have a hard time believing that they couldn't come up with some way to film these and fake these. Now, it'd certainly be harder, in my opinion, these days, because you'd have to go CGI. You wouldn't be able to hide the fact that you're using backdrops and that kind of thing.
But NASA's a federal agency, right? It's a government agency.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so that means that, and correct me if I'm in the chat if I'm wrong here, but federal agencies have to be transparent with their budgets, right?
No, they don't. They have many ways that they can hide black budgets.
Okay. Are they not supposed to be transparent?
They're supposed to be, but have you heard of these audits that they've tried to do on the Department of Defense? And they're missing like trillions of dollars. I mean, it's just like a sucking pit where we throw our money into. They spend so much money, there is no way we
And
can account
what
for
are they doing
everything.
with
The
that?
CIA budget, you
What are
think
they
you
doing
know
with
what's
that
in the
money?
CIA budget? No.
I wouldn't pretend to know. But what do you think they're doing with this millions and billions of dollars? NASA in
That NASA
particular.
takes? I have no
Yeah.
idea. I don't pretend to know. I mean, I'm sure some of they
Massive
obviously have
parties,
staff
Clippers
and
and
they
Co.
have
Or
operations that they need to pay for. What they're doing with it
yeah.
besides that, I have no idea.
I mean, because that's one thing that always confuses me, right? So NASA are faking all this so they don't actually need to spend the millions and billions of dollars they're getting on space travel. So what are they doing with that money? Where is it going?
Well, I don't know, but I'm sure they can find something to spend it on. The government is very good at spending our money. I'm not too worried about the budget anyway. It's not really that much in the scheme of things. I mean, it's only like, what is it, 60 billion a year or something like that? I can't remember.
I think so. But also people in the chat are saying that NASA is not part of the Department of Defense.
Okay.
So, I mean,
so you're saying when I said the trillions of dollars that the Department of Defense couldn't audit, that was just an example of how good the government is at keeping track of the money that they have, their budgets.
I mean, not very good at keeping track of it. If they audited it and found that there's some missing, that's kind of the opposite of being good.
No, they can't account for it.
Right. So,
by the way, there was four manned descents to the Mariana Trench and 3 unmanned descents. So not just 2. So that has been done, and it's been done by, it looks like, different countries and different people. Whereas in this case, we only have one country and pretty much the same people that have done the moon landings. So I understand what you're saying. Why isn't everybody going to the bottom of the Mariana Trench? But not exactly analogous to the moon landings.
So is there any actual kind of hard evidence that the moon landings were faked other than kind of speculation and mistrust?
No, that's what I told you when we started this off. You're going to be disappointed because I don't have a smoking gun. There's nothing I can show you that says, look at that, they're faked it. I can show you a bunch of coincidences, anomalies, things. I can show you why I distrust NASA. But if you want to believe NASA, you can always find a plausible excuse to believe them.
Well, the thing is, what I like to do, and this comes from me knowing Reds really, is I don't go to NASA for information. I look for other ways to verify what NASA say. Like the International Space Station. Do you think the ISS is even up there?
I think there's something up there, obviously, because Reds and Jaron and many others have done, have filmed it. The transits, you can see it in the sky. Yeah, there's something up there.
Do you think it's at the height that we're told?
What is it, 250 miles?
Yeah.
Maybe, probably not. But it's possible.
Because that's been verified.
Yeah, I know you say it. I know that you'll say that it's been verified. I'm not sure that it has.
Red's calculated the distance to it using his own data.
I've seen Red's calculation, but there was some assumptions that he made in the calculation. It's been a long time since I looked at it, so, but I do remember at the time that there was some assumptions built in there that I had questions on.
Well, the actual only assumption that Red's made when he was doing the calculations was that the Earth was flat. He did that to show that even if the Earth was flat, there would still be something at that position.
Well, I'll have to go back and look at it. It's been a long time since I've watched anything from Reds besides what's on your channel.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's something in there. I'll tell you what I think it is. You want to hear what I think it is? This is just speculation.
Yeah.
I think that what it is some kind of weapons or a spy system, a surveillance system that they have up there. Do you remember, what was it called? Star Wars program in the United States during the late 80s, Ronald Reagan?
Not really.
All right, well, they launched this big multi-billion, was going to end up costing trillion weapons program called Star Wars. And they brought in some science fiction writers and so all these experts and even some kooks, some pretty far out there scientists to kind of come up with some kind of system to shoot missiles out of the sky, ICBMs. It was the last days of the Cold War, pretty much. So let me bring up an image.
That never done though.
What's that?
Wasn't that whole thing scrapped though? They never actually did it.
Yeah, they eventually ended up scrapping it. But I find the timing curious that the scrapping happened at a similar point in time to when the ISS was launched, shortly after that. But if you look at some of these images, even these little crude drawings, they am I sharing still? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Here, let me share real quick. Like I said, this is complete speculation. I'm just trying to get you to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean,
so you see these?
Yeah, I mean, can I just say it's kind of what I'm getting is that a lot of it is speculation on your part, right?
Yeah, I told you I have no hard evidence. I can't point to any smoking gun that NASA is faking anything.
But do you agree that there is evidence that it was real as well?
Certain things they're doing is real. There's real people involved. There are some activities that I would say are real. The moon landings, no. I don't think that there is anything that points to those being real directly. You've come up with lasers. You've come up with triangulation. It doesn't really tell me that what we saw on that film and the events that we were told actually transpired.
Okay, so just quickly, what could show you that those were real?
I really don't know at this point. I mean,
really don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't trust the video that comes up from them. I don't trust NASA. I don't know how to independently verify something that happened 52 years ago. I don't know.
But you're more happy to go with it's more likely to be fake than real, though.
That is my personal opinion, that it's more likely to be fake than real. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, opinions are fine, I guess, as long as you don't. I mean, if you said to me, I have hard evidence and I know for a fact that it's fake, I'd have more of an issue, right? The fact that you say, I don't really have any evidence, it's just my opinion. I can't be kind of too mad at that. I think it's silly because there's so much evidence the other way, but at least you are willing to admit that there is no hard smoking gun evidence to say, aha, look, NASA faked the whole thing. So yeah, I just wanted to say that that's more intellectually honest than a lot of flat earthers I've spoken to.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm not going to get mad at anybody for believing that the moon missions were real or that everything we see from NASA is taking place like it does. I understand that that's just my evaluation of things. And a lot of people share my opinion that there's a lot of fakery going on when it comes to space. If I had a smoking gun that said, I would definitely share it with you. But if I had to bet, and I would probably bet a lot that they were faked, just based on what I've seen. Too many coincidences, too many odd things, too many just so stories. I get that kind of, all my spidey senses go off.
What do you think is going to happen with Artemis?
I think they'll probably continue to delay it and kick the can down the road, and then probably just be a shell of what they told us it was going to be.
I do agree that it's probably going to be delayed. I think that's more due to COVID, and whether people think COVID or not is real, everyone can agree that it's disrupted things. So I do think that it's probably going to be delayed, but I don't necessarily think that means that it's not going to happen the way that they've told us. And just hypothetically, let's say that it gets to the point where the Artemis mission is launched and they're telling people that there's people on the base with a manned permanent base on the moon. Would that change your opinion of what's going on? The fact that they've kind of followed through with something?
If there were a manned base on the moon,
or at least if they got to the point where look, here we go, they've launched off. Well, hey, they've landed on the moon. There's the permanent manned base now. Would the fact that NASA have followed through with that give you any more credence? The fact that they didn't keep putting it off and they've actually said, look, we've done it. would that change your mind at all?
Probably not. I mean, obviously, I would be interested in seeing what they come up with, and I would give it some consideration. But at this point, it'd be very difficult for me to believe what I see coming from them. I can't think of what they could show me that would make me believe what they're saying. I have a deep distrust of the government. I don't trust them at all. And I know there are psychological operations that take place, even domestically, and I think this is one of them.
It's such a big operation to fall and to have to keep up. And as technology gets better and better, I just feel like there'd be private organizations that would also be calling out the lies.
Well, you've got SpaceX and what's the other one? Richard Branson's.
Blue Origin.
Yeah, Blue Origin.
Oh, Jeff Bezos is Blue Origin. Richard Branson's Virgin Space, I think.
Yeah, they're almost kind of quasi, SpaceX especially, quasi government agencies. I mean, they're so close in partnership with the government and NASA that even if SpaceX did the same thing and landed on the moon, kind of see them in the same light and consider them one and the same.
I mean, SpaceX and Blue Origin's are going to be the ones that are going to the moon. They're going to be the ones taking NASA there, you know?
Exactly. So they're essentially a government contractor. They're a quasi-government agency at this point.
Well, they're a contractor, yeah. I wouldn't say an agency. I mean, yeah, they're definitely a government contractor because, you know, they've got the technology and it's a lot cheaper. They figured out how to do it a lot cheaper than NASA ever did. But what if other countries started going to the moon as well, independent of NASA? Say India set up their own moon base, or North Korea, you know, someone that we're definitely not friends with. What if they set up their own moon base and started sending out pictures and verified what the Americans and stuff said? This is just hypothetical, yeah. But would any of that convince you if there was, you know, competing nations going, oh, we've gone to the moon and yeah, they are already here?
No, India especially, again, they're kind of in that situation where these countries are all our allies, and they have the same motivations that we do, as far as propaganda to their population, the same motives for psychological operations that the United States have. So it'd be very difficult to trust any other nation as well. There's no government on earth where I go, that government doesn't lie.
Right. It's kind of hard because like you've said, you don't really have any hard evidence. It is a personal belief with you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for you, it is a personal belief that not just NASA, but the government in general are lying to you. Is that fair?
Well, I think there's hard evidence that the government lies to us. As far as if NASA is specifically lying to us, I don't have a smoking gun, but I would say the circumstantial evidence, some of the stuff that I've showed you, some of the stuff that we've talked about, is evidence that they're lying. But yeah, it is a personal belief at the end of the day.
And short of, say, you going to space yourself, there's not much that could really change your mind.
No, not really. Not at this point.
If you were offered the chance to go to space, would you take it?
I don't know. You know, would I want to take that risk? Like if I was a single guy, if I was 21 years old, I didn't have a family, didn't have a responsibility, people weren't counting on me, I would hop in there immediately. But there are risks inherent in firing yourself off into space, because this has come up before and I've thought about it. I would want to, okay, but I don't think it'd be a responsible thing for me to put myself in that position.
Okay, what if, say, one of your regular panel members, what if they went to space and then were like, yeah, it's real? Would you believe them, or would you then think they were part of the lie?
There's some people that I would trust in this world to right, tell me the truth. And there's some people that I wouldn't, but yeah.
Say they sent Jeranism up. Would you believe him? A lot of people say that possibly a shill and stuff.
So you never really know about anybody, especially e-celebs, right? But In the case of Jaren, yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think I would believe him.
Interesting. It's interesting for me to know kind of what your limits are as to what point you would start thinking, well, yeah, maybe they haven't lied to us. All right, fair enough, Brandon. You've got a belief, all right? You've got a distrust in the government, and you've got a belief that there is circumstantial evidence, but nothing hard that has pushed you towards the possibility that what NASA tell us is fake. And I can't be as mad at you as I was expecting to be at first, because you're not coming to me straight up and going, no, NASA are lying. Here's proof they're lying. You're an idiot for thinking that they're telling the truth. And I've got to give you props, and you know, I actually find that you're being quite intellectually honest with me, so I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anything outside of kind of the moon landings and stuff that NASA has done that gives you credence to think that they might be faking things?
Anything outside of that? Yeah, the ISS, a lot of the ISS footage looks very fake to me. It looks like they're hanging on wires or using, you know, you've seen all that stuff before, and we don't have to go over it, but I do find it curious that there's so many anomalies that need to be explained away.
You mean like visual anomalies, like glitching and stuff?
And not only glitching, but like somebody grabbing a wire or some guy going back and it looks like he's hanging from a wire. And some of those have turned out to be, well, yeah, there's a plausible explanation, but there's so many things that we have to accept the plausible explanation or explain away. It just adds up to going, well, how many things do I have to ignore or accept in order to believe that this is real? But the ISS footage, some of it just looks totally fake to me.
Okay. Do you know what when you're in harnesses that you can actually get quite damaged from them?
No, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, there's a particular term for it, I can't remember what it is, but like actors in movies, they can't be in a harness like more than like 15 to 20 minutes at a time, because it actually physically affects your body with the way that blood is flowing and stuff. And that's one of the problems with saying that the people in the ISS are in harnesses, because a lot of the time there'll be continuous footage of them, you know, for an hour plus going through doors and stuff. And to be in a harness hanging for that long would physically damage the body.
Well, they do say that astronauts their bodies are physically damaged from being in space. So these guys do get physically damaged, right?
Death, you know, like it's called suspension trauma. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. And okay, just after a few minutes, but usually occurs at least 20 minutes of free hanging. Typical symptoms are pallor, sweating, shortness of breath, blurred vision, dizziness, nausea, hypertension, and numbness of the legs. Eventually, it leads to fainting within 20 minutes, which may result in death due to oxygen deprivation of the brain. So this is something that they have to take into account a lot when they're doing, you know, movie stuff. And Tom Holland was talking about when he was filming for the Uncharted movie, how he had to go to hospital or at least get treated by the medics like twice from being in a harness for so long that he started to feel dizzy and get out of breath and stuff. And that was like less than 20 minutes. So looking at a lot of the ISS videos that are 40 minutes, an hour a minute, even longer, an hour longer, it's, you know, it goes against what happens when you're being in a harness for that long.
Well, I would imagine that if it's really that dangerous, because there's lots of things that the government asks us to do that are dangerous. You were in the military, right?
Yeah, I was in the Royal Navy.
Yeah, I was in the Army, and my job when I got deployed was to sit on this wire strap that was like 2 inches wide for 12 hours a day. My legs got numb. You know, it's 120 degrees beating down on me. I mean, people make physical sacrifices for the mission, right? So I don't see why these people wouldn't make physical sacrifices for the mission, or why would they wouldn't come up with some things to minimize the damage. They're always talking about how astronauts are damaged from just being in space, and they have all these medical issues, right? I think they always talk about bone density and other things, but perhaps they do have these impacts, and that is something that they deal with, and it's due to hang. I don't think they're always hanging either, by the way.
Even like circus performers and stuff, you know, in harnesses, they they can't do acts that last more than like 5-10 minutes because of the pressure it puts on the body.
Yeah.
I think part of it is it's called compartmentalism, where if the harness is like around your waist and under your groin, it will cut off the blood from your hips to your legs. And then when you take off the harness, you can actually get a toxic shock because the blood that hasn't been circulating properly loses its nutritional properties. And then when it goes back into the rest of your blood, you can get a toxic shock from it and things like that. So to me, the fact that there is limits around wearing harnesses shows that it puts away the, oh, look, they're just hanging on harnesses for an hour and a half. No, it's not physically possible. The only way it would be possible if they were in a zero gravity environment, then a harness wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think some of the footage, it looks like it's filmed, they could use that, what's it called, the vomit comet. It does look like they're using wires in some cases. I also think that they're actually, this is probably going to be pretty far out there for some of your audience, that they're actually using CGI, like that fake face technology. What's that called? I can't remember. Deep fakes.
Oh, like deep fakes.
It looks like their faces just look so fake to me sometimes. Like I'm looking at them and like they look like a character out of a video game. Now that could be just some digital weirdness with what they're filming with, but I've noticed that a few times. So I think they've got a lot of tricks in their bag. Hollywood, can provide a lot of different ways for them to fake something. I haven't seen anything that I thought, no way this could be faked. The one thing that was most impressive was like that 50-minute long, like ISS space station video. Do you remember that?
1 hour and 7 minutes one, I think.
1 hour and 7 minutes. And
go through doorways backwards and stuff, and
that one I was like, that's pretty impressive that they could do something like that. But even that, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. There's been movies where they've done long shots like that. Now, floating around like that, no, but where there's a will, there's a way. And I think that these guys are very clever, that we're dealing with, if what I think is true, and this is a psychological operation, that the people we're dealing with are extremely bright minds, and they have a lot of money to hire a lot of talent, and they're very clever, much more clever than we give them credit for.
I mean, the edited stuff, all right, maybe there could be some post-production, but it's when they do the live streams where they're responding to audience members and they're there for up to an hour, just floating, talking. I mean, you can't do that live and fake it like that. Maybe, like you said, post-production, but it's when it's the live things that's what gets me, is that there's no way to deny that what they're doing is real, especially when we're responding to audience and stuff, unless the claim is also that all the audience and that they were talking to them over the live stream, whatever, are also fake.
No, I think they'd be faking it for the audience as well. I don't think that obviously the audience would be in on it. But.
So sorry, I was going to ask someone. I forgot what I was then.
But yeah, sorry. I know people were expecting a dumpster fire, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know 100% sure.
It to be a dumpster fire. I thought it would be rather a conversation with you rather than a dumpster fire. And like I said, the fact that you're not making any hard claims, and it's you admit that it's a personal belief. For me, that shows a little bit of intellectual honesty. So I'm not going to get all angry and stuff at you. I know people have this impression of me being the nasty, shouty man, but that there's a reason I get like that. And it's when people are intellectually dishonest and, are just straight up shitty to me, I do it back 1,000 times. Yeah, I think you're wrong. I don't think you understand a lot of it, but you're intellectually honest enough to say, I don't have a smoking gun. This is a personal belief, a distrust in the government that's all led to this. I wish you would be a little bit more open-minded, but I can't be, I honestly can't be too mad at you. With regards to the ISS, the fact that REDS has measured the distance to it and the speed that it's going shows that there is something up there at the speed and distance that we're told. And I think that's kind of undeniable. There's no assumptions in Red's measurements. It's real world measurements simply from the angles of the camera and the EQ mount and the parallax from looking at the moon with the angular dimensions of the moon. No assumptions at all. And you can't argue with a triangle. You know, a triangle is a triangle.
Yeah, we'll have to go look back and look at what Reds did in that case. I can't remember what assumptions I had a problem with there, but I'll take another look at it. I understand where you're coming from with triangulation. So I've had this conversation before many times, but I don't know. There's some assumptions baked in there that I question.
Okay, right. So outside of NASA and fakery, what else is kind of your main reasons for being into the flat Earth?
Well, basically, I come from the viewpoint that my entire life, all that I've experienced is a flat and stationary world that I live in. Level has always been flat in all practical matters in my entire life. I've always known water to find its level. Never felt or detected any movement, never had to account for any movement of the ground that I'm on. And I've always seen the celestial objects above me move across the sky. So I come from that viewpoint, and then I say, what is the evidence that that is untrue? That the empirical evidence, the empirical data, my life experience that I have for 40 plus years is incorrect, and that my senses are fooled and all of my experience as well. What is the evidence? So what I've been doing is trying to find curvature. And lately we've been talking a lot about a physical measurement of curvature. So you take out any of the assumptions, you take out any of the arguments about the behavior of light, refraction, etc. And so far we can't even come up with a way to measure curvature physically. So if I can't find any curvature, I can't detect any movement, then I'm stuck at a place where the only evidence I have is for a flat and stationary plane, unless I start accepting some assumptions.
Okay, but we can detect movement. That's one of the big things that I go for. Talking about curvature can be tiresome because the arguments around refraction and stuff, we can go backwards and forwards for a long, long time. And yes, it is a hard thing to do to physically measure the curvature, which is why surveyors have particular methods with, you know, multiple data points and stuff. But it's a hard subject to get into, and I like to talk more about the movement of Earth and the evidence we have of that. Now, you said that you like to go with your senses. Now, what do your senses tell you about the Earth moving?
Yeah, my senses tell me that the Earth is stationary.
Okay, so what if you were on one of the bullet trains in Japan, going 250 miles an hour, and it's smooth as a cloud, and you got your eyes closed, you're sitting there in your chair, not looking out the window? What are you gonna feel? What's your senses gonna tell you?
We're going at a constant speed in a bullet train. It's debatable whether or not I'd be able to sense any movement at all, or if I'd just feel like I was stationary.
See, you'd feel like you were stationary. Let me show you a quick video.
I'll take your word for it. I'll give you that if you're on a bullet train, you'd feel like you're stationary. That's fine. I do think if you moved on the bullet train, if you went one way or the other, that you would know that you're on a moving platform.
Absolutely. If if there was an acceleration in a different direction, then you would absolutely feel that. But I mean, I can show you a video of a coin sitting on its side on a bullet train that's going like 250 miles an hour, you know, and the coin doesn't fall over.
Yeah.
Because it, you know, as far as that coin is concerned, it's on a stationary object because they're both moving at the same speed. And that's what we expect. Because we're on something that's moving at a constant speed, we don't really expect to feel the acceleration. You know, there is no change in speed, so we don't feel it.
But there is an acceleration on the face of the Earth, right? Because we're moving in a what is it called? A circle. I can't remember the word.
We're moving in multiple axes, right?
We're supposed to be moving in a around a sphere. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you talking about the Earth's rotation around the sun?
Yeah, rotational. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
No, not only that, just our the Earth's rotation.
yeah.
There's an
Okay. So
acceleration there because
Earth,
it's not a straight line, or it's not
yeah.
linear.
Okay. Right. So yes, there is an acceleration, but there's at the same time a deceleration in another axis. So with rotational, acceleration, although there is technically always an acceleration, it's an acceleration countered by a deceleration in another axis. So it still counts as a sum zero. So yeah, although technically when you're rotating, there is always an acceleration, there is also always a deceleration which counters that. You're still moving at a constant velocity with a net sum of zero acceleration.
So we don't always feel acceleration then.
Not if there is an equal and opposite deceleration, because then that's still a constant velocity. It's the forces counting out. It's the sum of acceleration you have to look at. If there's a sum of zero, then you'll feel zero.
Oh, you're saying there's just a vector change, but the overall. Okay, I got you. That's fine. But how does that tell me your bullet train example? And what you're saying about acceleration? What evidence does that provide that the Earth that we're actually on is moving?
It doesn't. That's just my point, is that with a constant velocity or a sum of zero acceleration, you're not going to feel it, which is why we can't really rely on our senses. You wear glasses, I wear glasses. Our senses are useless. Without our glasses, we probably can't see very well. We can't always trust our senses. Our senses aren't designed, to detect the movement of the Earth, which is why we have to use tools. And there is several tools that we can use to measure the rotation of the Earth. I mean, you obviously know the story of Bob and his gyro. You can use an interferometric gyro to measure the rotation of the Earth at any latitude, and it's 15 degrees always. You can use a pendulum to see the drift based on what latitude you're on, and that's a measurement of the Earth's rotation. There's hundreds of different ways to measure the rotation of the Earth, even using physical gyros.
That's the part that I where you're making assumptions, is that you say that is caused by the Earth's rotation. So that's the part that I balk at. So obviously you can swing a pendulum back and forth. You can look at a ring laser gyro and detect something. And I haven't looked too far into the ring laser gyro because I don't know, I haven't. But how do you connect what you're measuring to the rotation of the Earth? How do you say this is what causes this effect that I'm measuring?
In science, making assumptions is fine. That's one of the things you kind of have to do, because to make a prediction, you have to make an assumption. So what you do is you come up with the hypothesis that the Earth is rotating, and then you make an assumption with that, which is what a prediction is. So you say, well, if the Earth is rotating, then that means we should see this particular effect. And you come up with a way of testing the effect that you've predicted, which the whole process requires you making an assumption. But assumptions are fine as long as you test that assumption and see what you get. So that's why you can use, for instance, a pendulum, right? And you can say, right, so if the Earth is rotating, if I'm at this particular latitude and I swing the pendulum back and forth, it should drift this particular amount. So you test that, and then you see, right, well, the math says that it should drift this amount over a certain amount of time. Oh, and it has drifted that amount over that certain amount of time. That verifies the prediction that you've made. Yes, you had to make an assumption that the Earth was rotating for that, but that's absolutely fine. Science, you need assumptions in science because you have to test those assumptions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but all you've done is failed to. Okay, so you're making a prediction. You're saying, here's my model. I predict this will cause this effect in the gyroscope or this item. How did you rule out? How did you falsify the other potential causes? This is what bothers me, is that movement, the gyro or the ring laser, whatever you're measuring, is correlated to a lot of different things.
That's why you have things like independent variables, dependent variables, and control variables.
Right. So, right? Yeah.
So you have those things so that you can decide what particular thing you're testing. You know, if you want to test, you know, if we're talking about gravity and you want to test an attraction of mass, but you want to eliminate any electromagnetic things, you use wood or something. You know, you control what could be affected by what. So that's what you do in an experiment. You think, right, okay, so this is the effect that I'm specifically testing for. What control variable can I put alongside it to make sure that it's not something else, something that won't change when I alter the IV? The control variable shouldn't change. That shows that it's not affecting that. And that's, you know, you have all these things in the experiments.
So in the case of the pendulum, what is your independent variable in that case?
The independent variable, the thing that you manipulate, would be the amount of time that the pendulum swings for, or the position on the earth that you are.
So you have potentially a correlation with the amount of time that you're observing the pendulum, which I think you can use time in any experiment. So that one's not.
Yeah, time it mostly depend. Honestly, time is, if you use time in an experiment, it's usually the independent variable. Sometimes it can be the dependent variable, but most of the time classes as an independent variable. So if you say, right, so I want this experiment to run for 15 minutes, and then I want it to run for 20 minutes, and then I want it to run for 25 minutes, right? You've changed your independent variable. And based on the amount of time that you let the pendulum swing for, you should get a different amount of drift, which is your dependent variable, which is what you measure.
So in this case, you've got latitude, which is location would be latitude on the Earth, and you've got time as your independent variable. How do you tie that back to the rotation of the Earth? Because at the end of the day, you're going to go, well, time caused this, or the latitude caused this movement of the pendulum. So how do you tie it back?
You from your prediction, right? You say, well, if the Earth is a rotating globe, then that means that at this latitude, we should get this specific amount of rotation. So you can test it at one latitude and do 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour at that latitude. And then you can go to another latitude and see what drift you get and see if it correlates to the latitude. And when you do the math for each latitude, you would get a different amount of drift. And that shows that it's the fact that the Earth is rotating and that you're at a different latitude that is affecting the amount it drifts, which is a prediction from the rotating Earth.
But I could make predictions based on a flat circular Earth based on latitude and time and come up with the, I could do the calculations, not that I have, but I could do the calculations because we've got a correlation with latitude.
It wouldn't work on a flat surface that's rotating. It's the specific fact that there is a different axes, and the pendulum is sitting at different angles at each different position on the Earth as you go around. You wouldn't get the same results on a flat rotating disc as you would on a rotating sphere. On a rotating sphere, the prediction is that at the equator, there would be zero rotation of the pendulum. There'd be zero drift. At the poles, you would get 360 degrees in 24 hours. That wouldn't be the same prediction on a flat disc. If you look at the AE map, for instance, the equator is literally halfway along that. On a rotating disc, you wouldn't expect the equator to have a zero drift of the pendulum. It would be a different prediction.
Okay, so you obviously in this case haven't manipulated the independent variable being the rotation of the Earth, right? Those are the assumptions that I'm talking about. You're saying I made a prediction based on my model that it's the rotation or the swing of the pendulum, the movement of the gyro, whatever you're measuring with the gyro, is correlated to latitude and the amount of time I observed the gyro for. But, and then you've created a mathematical model to explain what you have observed at a specific latitude. Now, I could create a mathematical model based on a flat Earth that would predict the exact same thing that you have, and I could say, well, at this latitude, I would expect it to do this based on what it's correlated with.
That's the thing, you couldn't. The physics wouldn't work on a flat rotating disk. There isn't a model you could come up with that would accurately reflect what happens in reality. And that's the point. If you go with the model of Earth that we have, the rotation and the size, then there's particular effects that you would expect from that.
Have you tried to do that? Have you tried to create a mathematical model based on a flat plane that would explain the observations?
Yeah, I tried to do the math for a pendulum drifting, and it just doesn't make sense at all, because it would mean that at the South Pole, the pendulum would drift about 10 times as much as everywhere else, and not in the 2D plane that it does, because the rotation is, the centrifugal acceleration would act in a different direction than it would on a rotating globe, than it would on a rotating disc. It would force the pendulum to drift in different ways than it would on Earth. The maths of why the pendulum drifts the way it does matches the prediction of a rotating globe with reality, and it doesn't match what would happen on a rotating disc.
Why would there be centrifugal forces on a flat plane?
Because you're rotating. If we're assuming that the flat plane's rotating here, right?
No. That the flat thing is stationary.
Oh, well, there would be no drift at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You say there would be no drift, but there are other things that are rotating, obviously, around the flat plane. If there's a flat plane, there are other things that are rotating.
A pendulum?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there are definitely energy coming from the celestial objects, the sun, the stars, that could impact things here on Earth. You've got
what?
Like what? Yeah, the sun, the sunlight, obviously. All the energy coming from the sun, we harness that all the time. That's definitely impacting the surface of the Earth. I could correlate your pendulum to the sun moving around the
because you can do the experiment at night and day and it wouldn't be any different.
Well, just because it's night doesn't mean that you wouldn't be impacted by those same things rotating above the Earth, the stars and the sun. It could be correlated to that. Maybe what is it called? The magnetic field, or there's some energetic field that is causing this. How have you ruled those things out?
You do it with wood, and the gentleman physicist did it with wood. And there is no model that could explain, using known physics, any energy that would produce a different drift at different latitudes the way that it does on Earth. The entire point is that what happens in reality matches the model that we have. You know, we can make a prediction based on if the Earth is a rotating globe, test it in reality, and we get what we expect. And those predictions simply wouldn't work on a stationary, flat Earth.
I hear you saying that, but whenever I hear you guys say this is what we would expect on a flat Earth, it sounds to me like you're setting up a straw man, and then making predictions based on your straw man of how you think things would work for whatever reason, and then saying, well, it doesn't match this straw man, so we've falsified flat Earth. That's what I hear when you guys say that.
It's not a straw man. The physics of a flat, non-rotating plane would not make a pendulum drift. That's not a straw man. That's just physics. There is a physical explanation as to why a pendulum drifts the certain amount that it does on a rotating globe. There wouldn't be an explanation for it on a flat, non-rotating plane. At least none that I've ever seen or had any explained to me.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. You just said, none that I've ever seen or had explained to me, which is fair enough. No one has come up with it, obviously.
I've tried to figure it out mathematically, and it just doesn't make sense with what we see in reality.
Yeah, but you understand that I have to accept the fact that obviously we're not impacting the rotation of the Earth. We're not manipulating that independent variable. So we're relying on these correlations, and you have to accept that assumption that what is causing these differences is the rotation of the Earth. That's the part that I get stuck in. And what you said there, makes sense. I understand why you believe that. And in fact, if you have a video or something where you explain that, I'll go take a look at it and I'll tell you what I think after that. But it's that leap. It's that leap that, and I think I've heard you talk about it before, but it's that leap from, yes, it's correlated to latitude and it's correlated to the amount of time, to that means that my spinning ball model is the cause of that movement we've seen. That's the part where I get stuck.
Yeah, it's evidence to suggest that, right? That's the thing. That's the whole point of science, is you make predictions and you test those predictions, and if those predictions are correct, you've got evidence that what you say is correct.
So if I come up with, oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say science never really proves anything, because that's not what it does. Science is there to provide evidence of a position. And in this case, the evidence the Earth is rotating is a prediction that we make, that we can test in reality and find out that it works.
Here's one thing that bothers me. I'll look at your video for that, but here's one thing that bothers me about the rotating model is the Velcro atmosphere. The fact that the atmosphere moves in lockstep with the Earth around it. So you've got this solid, the Earth, and then you've got a cloud of gas that surrounds the Earth that is rotating. And for some reason, the gas is rotating along with the solid underneath in lockstep. Can you tell me by what mechanism that is taking place? Why is a gas cloud moving in lockstep with the solid underneath it?
It's a whole bunch of reasons. Billions of years of friction, gravity, and the fact that there's no friction on the other side of the gas, because that's the vacuum of space. You know, the Earth's been rotating for billions of years. The gas has been rotating with the Earth for billions of years. You know, the conservation of momentum says it will keep rotating with the Earth. The friction of the ground going against the air molecules for billions and billions of years, it's going to drag it around. And that's simply what's happened.
So essentially, it sounds like you are saying that the friction of the air molecules touching the surface of the ground, you know, everywhere on the surface that's connected to the Earth, is the friction between that and the air molecules is kind of pulling the atmosphere in a sense along with the Earth. Is that right?
Yeah, like if you ever mixed paint for doing decorating or anything, you know, you mix at the center and you can see that it mixes the whole bucket, not just the center.
Right.
Because of the friction, you know, it drags it around. And obviously it's not going to go the same speed because the paint's got the friction of the outside of the bucket as well. But imagine if that bucket wasn't there, but the paint still stayed and you kept spinning. So there's no friction on the outside of the paint. It's eventually all going to start spinning the same speed as the stick you're spinning it with, right?
No, I understand. No, I understand the friction part. But what I wanted to get at was, can you show me this happening somewhere on the Earth? I mean, it should be happening everywhere on the surface of the Earth, I suppose, except for the North Pole or the South Pole, if there is a South Pole. It should be happening everywhere, since everywhere the atmosphere comes into, you know, touches the surface of the Earth. I should be able to detect this friction between the Earth and the atmosphere, right? This phenomena.
Well, they're moving at the same speed now, and you know,
so they're perpetually now they don't. The friction isn't needed anymore. That they're moving at the same speed, and they'll just move at the same speed forever. Or
conservation of momentum. You know, the mixture of conservation of momentum, friction, and gravity keep the atmosphere with us now.
Is there still this friction taking place now, or was the friction happened before for billions of years and now we don't need it anymore?
Well, conservation of momentum will probably be the main cause, but of course there's still going to be some friction, but you can't really measure friction like that.
Why? If there's friction happening, I would think, you know, just logically, that I should be able to measure that taking place, especially since it's a worldwide phenomena.
How would you measure the friction?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. I mean, do you have evidence of this friction taking place that's part of the mechanism of keeping the atmosphere with the Earth? This is one of my main issues.
It rotates with the Earth. I mean, that's physically what we expect to happen, and that's what has happened. Now, I can't go outside of Earth or go back in time. I haven't quite cracked time travel yet. Give me a few years. I can't go back in time and show you the Earth at the beginning when there wasn't much of an atmosphere, and the atmosphere being created and you know, dragged around for billions of years. I can't go and demonstrate that. That's outside of my reams to do, but that's the physical explanation of, and what we expect to happen.
No, I understand. Okay, you may expect it to happen. That's interesting, but you said something, I can't go back in time. Why would we need to go back in time? I don't want to see when the Earth first started spinning. I want to see the mechanism taking place now, if it still is, of this friction taking place between the surface of the Earth and the air molecules. I would suppose there would be more of that at the equator than, say, you know, up in higher latitudes at 80 degrees. Has any difference in this friction ever been measured, or has this friction ever been observed?
Well, the fact that the Earth's rotating imparts certain effects onto the atmosphere.
That's what I want to see. I want to see that effect of the it being imparted on the atmosphere.
Winds, the easterly and the westerly winds are, because of the fact the Earth's rotating. Friction is such a minor part of what's going on, because it's been going on for so many billions of years. The main force that you're looking at these days is gravity, and the fact that conservation of momentum is a thing. The atmosphere is now rotating with the Earth, and there's no friction on the other side for it to stop. So the main thing that we look at now is the fact that there's gravity accelerating the atmosphere towards the Earth, and the fact that conservation of momentum is a thing. The atmosphere is rotating. It's going to keep rotating. There's no reason for it to stop.
That gravity, it pulls in a downward vector in your model towards the center of the Earth, right? So there's that, there's inertia because of gravity, correct?
Well, yeah, there's an acceleration towards the ground.
There's an acceleration towards the ground, so things are going to tend to fall down towards the ground on Earth, towards the center of the Earth in your model. So that seems to go counter to this, the atmosphere rotating with the Earth, because it's going to have this force in your model pulling it down towards the ground. It would seem to me that because that's taking some of its energy away by being pulled in that vector, that it would need to make up for that somehow, the air molecules, in order to keep up with the rotating sphere. And all I'm asking for is, do you have any empirical evidence? Can you show me the phenomena of the Earth pulling along with the friction or whatever, the atmosphere as it rotates? I haven't been able to find that, and that's kind of a logical hole for me in the whole model. Oh, you still there? Oh, there you are.
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, no problem.
I had to take a drink. I had something in my throat. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so a couple of assumptions that you got wrong there. The fact that it would take energy away because it's pulling down, well, that actually helps the friction, because the gravity is pulling down the air molecules, so they stack on top of each other. So that's making them kind of touch each other, which is helping with the rotation of the Earth and dragging them all around.
Oh, well, if it's increasing the friction, is that what you said? It would increase the friction?
Well, gravity would be the reason why the friction is there, because it's pulling the things towards the ground, which is creating the friction. But gravity is the main force that we're looking at as to why the atmosphere is contained with the ground.
Makes sense theoretically, but what I'm asking you for is some empirical evidence.
So you want evidence of air molecules hitting the ground?
No, I want evidence that they're being pulled around by the ground. The atmosphere is being pulled around with the Earth.
Well, I could show you Earth from space and show you it doing that.
Well, I mean, now we're going to go back to my distrust of NASA. See, this is the problem that I have. I understand you can look at pictures of space all day long and go, well, duh, there's a picture of space. And I'm going to look at the same picture of space and go, yeah, nice Photoshop, nice painting, nice whatever. I don't trust those guys.
Right, okay, here we go. Let me... so what happens when you're driving along in your car and you stick your hand out the window?
Yeah, you feel resistance. You feel the friction of the air against your hand, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So is your hand dragging that air along with you?
In some cases, yeah, I guess it is in some cases, yeah.
Right. There you go. That's the physical phenomenon happening.
I know. I want to see the physical phenomena. I want to see evidence of the physical phenomena of the ground carrying along the atmosphere.
Well, we can't show you the ground carrying along the atmosphere because we are in that happening, so we'd have to go outside of that to show you that happening. Well, but we can show you the same physical phenomenon in different circumstance, like sticking your hand out of a window in a car. The friction is you dragging the air along with you.
So it's theoretical in most cases. We don't have any empirical evidence that the ground is imparting this energy to the air molecules. It's theoretical, essentially, based on deductive reasoning.
It's not theoretical. We know the Earth that the atmosphere is rotating with the Earth. We know that's a fact, and we know that gravity is pulling the air towards the ground. And we know that if something is pushed towards something, there's going to be friction. There's nothing theoretical about that. That is going to happen.
Yeah, I know, but we can't see the friction. That's my point. But anyway, let's move on. Think about that one. I tell you what, I am about to piss my pants. So if you don't mind, why don't we? I don't know. Maybe you can start reading your super chats. I'll hit the bathroom and then we wrap up. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no worries.
Right,
see you in a sec. I'll read some super chats and then just go over any final points and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
All right, speak in a sec.
Cool.
Wow. A lot of denial, I think, but I'll just mute myself on Zoom a sec.
Hey guys, sorry, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Shit, I wish I had something to play for you guys while I was going to the restroom here. Let me bring this up. I'll just play. Hope he doesn't mind. Dilly Gills, excellent space fakery stuff, and then I will be back in 2 minutes. So at least you'll have something to hear while we get this going underway. So hopefully you guys can hear that. Let me make sure. Where am I at here? Desktop audio? Do you guys hear that? Huh. It doesn't seem like there's any sound coming through for you guys. Wonder why. All right. Anyway, well, this will take me a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm back. For anybody who hasn't heard of Dilly, go check out his work. It is excellent stuff. So I'm gonna okay, he's muted. Let me see if I have any comments to read. Doesn't look like it. And hopefully he'll rejoin us and we'll do our final thoughts here in just a minute. And this, well, maybe I'll open up the Discord. If anybody wants to head into Discord, we can talk briefly. This is the least dumb thing Brandon said all morning. Thank you, Day. I appreciate that. What's going on, guys? I haven't been looking at the chat much. Would love to debate, fight the flat earth. Looks like a walk in the park. It was pretty calm for most of it, I think, there. It was more of a discussion for a lot of it. Only once in a while do I feel like I'm in the mood to really butt heads with somebody. Not very often. It was all right. I hope it wasn't boring. Oh, let's see. What else is going on, guys? Gravity's not equal all over. Yeah, for sure. 450 on Fight the Flat Earth. Yeah, wow. Good for him. I know better than to argue with a troll. Huh. The irony of you saying that, Blue. That's a lot of irony. Yeah, I can't hear how. Okay. Anyway, so how did you guys think it went? As far as debates go, thought it was all right personally. What do you guys think? No? Craig was, yeah, he was being pretty civil. I was impressed with, you know, how civil he was. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't mind these guys. I don't mind talking to them. I think it's the wrong approach to take in some cases, to go out there and just say, I have all the answers. I know what's going on. I'm the smartest guy in the world. I guess that's the point of a debate, is to stick to your position and to defend it without backing down any little bit, but it's really not my style. Try to admit when I don't know something, not get my ego too wrapped up in things, but it's hard to do sometimes. He's just reading his I can't even hear him. There he is. Frank, says you did great. Thank you very much. Data, a genuine debate. Yeah, thanks, man. Jose Reyes is here for the comedy. That's fine. Let's see what else we got. Looks like there's some good back and forth taking place in the chat out there today. Josie says all is good. Good. Good to hear, Josie. Good to see you guys out there this morning. Kind of wish there was a globe proof. I was hoping for some solid evidence of a globe proof too. It's always 2 or 3 times removed from reality. Never anything we can get our hands on, touch, taste, feel, whatever other senses are. Hear? Could we hear globe proof? It's never anything like that. It's always something like, well, my model predicted this and this is what we measured. No, it's not literally tied to that as a cause, but we know it's from the globe. It's always, we know it's from the globe, like that atmosphere thing at the end. Can't point to this friction that's taking place all over. I just feel like you got to have some measurement, some empirical data that shows that the Earth rotates. You should be able to measure something. And the only answer I get is, we know because the Earth is rotating. We know that's happening because the Earth is rotating. Yeah, he did go on mute. I don't know why he did that. Well, at least we don't have to listen to all of his comments on all of the people in his chat and all the shitty things they're saying about me right now. That's kind of cool. I'd much rather stick to the shitty things my own globe trolls say. So that's okay. Thank God for the advances in science, physics, and astronomy that flat earthers have provided to humanity. You're welcome, Jose Reyes. Not a big deal. Now a debate with Jose G. No. Jose doesn't really like to debate that much. I think he just likes to troll, which is fine. All the actual measurements, Samuel, please tell me what actual measurements of rotation? What measurements of rotation are you talking about? Everything can cause friction. Yeah, in this case, I'd like to see the friction that is caused by the Earth pulling the atmosphere along, since that is one of the mechanisms by which you say that energy is transferred to the atmosphere. That keeps it in lockstep, which is a ridiculous story in the first place, to be honest with you. So you're going to have to provide some evidence of that. Sorry.
Hey, Brandon, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Excellent. Right. Now I've finished talking to my chat.
Cool.
There was one question for you that I just wanted to, if you don't mind, was asking what your thoughts are on the recent Mars rover landing, just briefly.
Pretty much the same thoughts I have on any of the other NASA footage, etc. I thought they did a good job. I was impressed by some of the footage that came back. If they are truly faking that footage, they're doing a pretty dang good job. Nice CGI, guys.
So, but you obviously still think it's fake.
Yeah. There's nothing in there that falsified the possibility of it being fake.
I got to say, I did facepalm slightly over the your community post about the zip ties, though.
Oh yeah, I was kind of joking around in that post, but it is interesting that they sent this thing all the way across, supposedly and use zip ties to hold the wires down. But I'm sure you could come up with
So
a.
in the Royal Navy, I was a nuclear engineer, spent a lot of my time working on nuclear reactors. Have you any idea how much that nuclear reactor is held together with zip ties?
No, I've never been on a nuclear reactor.
Like so much, so many things that are supposed to be attached to certain things that just covered in zip ties. Zip ties are affordable, they're versatile, they're durable, they're an amazing thing to use. And when the ones on the rover are made from ethylene fluoride tetraethylene, which is rated to like 2,000 times the normal radiation of the polymer they use in normal zip ties. So I mean, why wouldn't they use that if that is probably the best thing to use?
Why wouldn't they just use a permanent zip tie or a permanent tie instead of a zip tie?
Maybe for weight reasons, maybe for it needed some slight maneuverability. I mean, like I said, it isn't just your standard zip tie that you get down the hardware store. These are things designed for hard usage, you know? They're things designed to be in an environment like that.
Couldn't they design a permanent tie with the same material? Why would they use a zip tie? Because zip ties, I think, you use in situations where you want to be able to cut them off and make some adjustments, and not having something permanent. You want to use something cheap that you can cut off and get rid of.
Maybe it was just the best option.
Yeah.
You know, why design a new type of permanent tie when you've got something that does the job already in a zip tie?
Okay, fair enough. That's plausible enough.
Now, I do want to say that I've actually enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, Brandon. Is there any final questions that you've got for me?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it was a good conversation. I appreciated it. I didn't know where it would go today, but very reasonable. And I respect your opinion that you believe in NASA and you're into all this space stuff. That's fine. Glad to hear you at least respect if other people have a difference of opinion.
It annoys me more when there's straight out denial and intellectual dishonesty involved with the skepticism. All right, you are what I would describe as a hyper skeptic, which automatically makes you kind of question anything that you see, and I don't mean this in a nasty way, but without evidence to support your claims. You're more likely to be skeptical than not. You're more likely to lean towards the I don't believe in that than the oh yeah, that's true. And that's more of a personal thing than being a straight up denialist and an asshole like a lot of flat earthers are. So for that, I appreciate it, and I thank you for the conversation.
All right, cool, man. Love to you can do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yep. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's that. I'm gonna go and pop into Discord. Let me see if there's anybody in there. Is that my Discord? No, that's Jim's Discord. I was like, holy shit, there's like 40 people in there. Let's see if there's anybody in mine. Jimbo's in there. Wonder if Jimbo wants to talk. If anybody wants to talk, I'll pop into the Discord for a few minutes. Otherwise, I'll end the show. What's up, Jimbo? Yeah, he's not even there. All right. Well, that is that.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Jimbo is there. What's up, Jimbo?
Yeah, everything that's not down, I guess, right now.
Yeah, good point, man. You got it. So did you listen to the debate with Fight the Flat Earth, or are you just hanging out in here?
I caught parts of it, indeed.
Yeah, what do you think? Don't pull any punches. I know you, Jimbo. You won't pull any punches.
Yeah, moon reflections and all this nonsense, right out the window, right down the tubes there. For every reason, the NASA bashing, it's not under justified. It's certainly very well, pointed and deserved. I don't know how best describe today's, stuff, but it's basically rhetoric, and wow, a lot of it was just, back to rays and back to, lunar nonsense.
I know it. They've got good stories. They've always got a good, plausible sounding, sciencey sounding story to back up what they say, For most of our criticisms or observations, they usually come back with something like that. And that laser ranger thing, we've talked about that many times. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too impressed with that, but I'll see what he comes up with. What did you think about the radio thing with triangulating the radio signal from the moon? Did you hear that part?
Yeah, more nonsense. You got this thing called moon bounces with amateur radio. Ham radio operators are supposed to be able to do what they call a moon bounce, where they bounce the signal off the moon to other points back down on the Earth. Ridiculous. Radios bouncing off of, well, basically what I see as a light in the sky. Not too likely.
Yeah.
The LSRO was supposed to be bouncing lasers off the moon's surface from a satellite orbiting the moon long before these so-called retro plates were put on them, or retroreflectors. So, to say only laser can reflect off the moon is also more nonsense.
He said something about they fire at areas where there isn't the retroreflector, and then they fire at areas where the retroreflector is supposed to be, and they get a different signal strength back from the retroreflectors. Have you ever heard that before? Because I couldn't remember hearing that before.
They claim they set up a 1 billion watt laser here on the ground to fire at the retroreflectors on the moon to get 1 electron back, which is ridiculous.
1 electron. Holy shit. That's nothing.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely nothing. And to think that, when you have lightning strikes all around the plane, if you will, it's static, it's spark, it's a energy form that well, I don't know how to best describe it. Static and sparks like that, they're sort of electron and whatever based, and they sort of neutralize others. How do you distinguish one from the other?
Yeah.
You get a spark, and that's all you're trying to identify is just a little spark coming in from 1 billion other sparks.
Right. Yeah, I'll see what he comes up with this triangulation thing with the stations in Australia and stations in the U.S. Listening to the moon mission. He wanted to really push hard on that. He was pushing me for evidence that it's possible to spoof a signal coming from the moon.
Well, the ham radio triangulation and thousands of people doing it and stuff is just nonsense. That's a type of mass appeal that's just preposterous.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't know what to say, but no, ham radio, there aren't millions of people that do it. It's a very selective group of people who are actually ham radio operators, and it comes with certain responsibilities too. But it also comes with amateur radio. It was developed by exactly that, amateurs, and I don't know, its evolution to all these, I don't know, like when people talk about the tower in Warsaw that was transmitting pretty well everywhere on the plane from 2,100 feet of elevation. People are talking, it's this type of signal that it's got to be AM or just spark generation, a spark gap generator. Back then, you didn't have FM,
Mm-hmm.
AM started it all. So when you're talking Marconi and Bell or anything like that, you got to be way back when it was, static generators there. It's a type of signal, but it's not true AM, and it's certainly not FM. But yeah, this claim that thousands of ham radio operators were doing telemetry data. Where is this data? Where are all these people that calculated all this telemetry with their ham radios and their antennas and getting it set up and pointed and all the directions worked out. Where's this data?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was asking him for. Show me some evidence of this triangulation. But he said he'd come up with it, so we'll see what he comes up with. But anyway, so what do you got going on today, Jimbo?
Not too much. I know you'll come up with word salad. Around here, just some sunshine and fresh air going around. Last night we had a wind event, we call it there. But it's so windy, it literally blows the water out of the toilet bowl, you know? That up and down, just pressure from the roof and stuff. And anyway, just a real gusty night.
Yeah, it's
really
been pretty windy here too as well the last few days. Like pretty surprisingly windy. No, we don't have any water blown out of toilet bowls, but been pretty windy. Pretty warm too. Anyway, all right. Well, I wanted to see what you thought. Sounds good. And anything else before we go, Jimbo? I'm gonna go get something to eat and
just bun up the tea and you know, keep it flat. I don't know what to say. These people and their delusions and faux science. I mean, keep on them. Nothing better to do right now, and just, you know, it has its function and it has its use. It's getting there, as they say. We're in the driver's seat in any case, as they say. Anyone else is in the bitch seat when it comes to flat Earth.
Hell yeah. All right. Thanks, Jimbo. Well, have a good weekend, man. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you on Monday evening.
Enjoy.
See you. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Monday, 5:05 Eastern Standard Time. And what is that over at 10:05? That's right, 10:05 in the UK. Have a good weekend. Talk to you later. Bye.